This is CBC News for Newfoundland and Labrador. I'm William Payne. Canada has become one of the first countries in the world to move ahead with the production of so-called green hydrogen, but some people are still questioning the economics. With its approval from the province, World Energy GH2 has a plan to generate wind power, use it to get hydrogen out of water, which is then turned into ammonia, exported probably to Germany, where it would then be turned back into hydrogen and used for fuel. Paul Martin is a chemical engineer and founder of the Hydrogen Science Coalition based in Toronto.
Long story short, buy 10 kilowatt hours in Newfoundland, get 2 kilowatt hours back in Germany. I guess that's not bad business if you are selling electricity, but not such good business if you're buying it. It's hard to imagine how people would be rich enough to afford it.
The Hydrogen Science Coalition is made up of independent scientists and researchers from several countries. Well, the first pitch hasn't yet been thrown, but there's already controversy for the Paradise Minor Baseball Association. The executive's facing questions over allegations of missing money, a big deficit, and now a steep hike in registration fees. Terry Roberts reports.
It's already 2 strikes for Paradise Minor Baseball. A police investigation is underway, with allegations that as much as $18,000 was taken from the association. The alleged theft accounts for nearly half of the financial shortfall from last season. And now the executive is getting criticized for a decision to jack up registration rates from 190 to 225 in the junior ranks, an even larger increase in the senior division, and all-star tryout fees that will climb from $50 to $130.
The reality is we didn't charge enough for the program.
Association President Sam Oliver admits the executive did a poor job last year of planning a budget, with costs for labor and supplies and gym rentals coming in much higher than expected. He also believes a former executive member exploited weak financial controls to pocket thousands of dollars.
For sure, I'm heartbroken about it. It's a terrible breach of trust.
Oliver says the fee increases are not related to the alleged theft, but some frustrated parents have launched a petition demanding the increases be cancelled. Oliver says fees have to go up or the program will fail. Meanwhile, he says more than 430 players had enrolled as of yesterday. He says that's very encouraging. Terry Roberts, CBC News, Paradise.
Well, no surprise here. People in this province pay a lot of tax. A new study by the Fraser Institute has found that Atlantic Canadians pay higher personal income tax rates than most of Canada. In the past 15 years, this province went from one of the lowest combined federal and provincial rates in Canada to the highest rate in the country, with an increase of 10%. The Fraser Institute says high-income earners here are paying more tax too. The combined federal and provincial top personal income tax rate has increased by 23%. The Institute says that discourages professionals and others from moving or staying here. Well, this year's crab season has the potential to be very good, according to the president of the FFAW union. Greg Priddy says all the factors are coming together, if only they could agree on the price.
Everybody in this industry now, the financial people, the market analysts, are saying no inventory, markets are improving, prices are being paid that are higher, and we can look forward to a better season than last year. But lo and behold, the Association of Seafood Producers decided these harvesters were not worth the market share.
Priddy says the difference in price between what fishermen want and what the processors are offering represents about $30 million to harvesters. And finally, for the third time in the past few months, the Information Commissioner has ruled the Justice Department has not complied with the Access to Information Act. The Commissioner investigated after 3 complainants said the department did not reply to their responses for information within the set time frame. The requests involve several topics, including the establishment of the Policing Transformation Working Group, the CERT investigation regarding RCMP involvement in alleged sexual misconduct, records related to Tent City, and about the delegation from Germany representing hydrogen companies. In each case, the Commissioner recommended the Justice Department comply with its duties under the Act. And that's the CBC News for Newfoundland and Labrador. I'm William Payne.
It's Thursday, April 11th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Just transition, green transition, energy transformation, whatever you call it, stuff is changing, and fast. Where are we with it? What opportunities are there now? What's to come? What are the jobs? We've got the answers today. All right, folks, welcome. If you're watching the live stream, hello. Thanks for tuning in. We're also going to pop this thing up on YouTube afterwards if you want to see the folks in the studio today. This is show number 3 on this issue. Back in the winter, we had MHAs in. It is spring, right? It's not, winter's over. Who knows? Anyways, back in the winter, we had MHAs in to talk about climate policy. Much of that centered around the transition. Then a few weeks ago, we heard from a leading academic on climate change. We had a union perspective, and we had an activist perspective. Today, we're talking about jobs and the transition, and we've got folks right in the middle of it. So as you're listening to this show, if you would like to text at any point, 709-327-8206, emails thesignal@cbc.ca. Joining me here in the studio, we've got Kieran Hanley, CEO with EcoNext. How you doing?
Great.
We've got Sean Leet, Managing Director and CEO of World Energy GH2. Hi.
Hey, Adam. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming in. Karen Perry, Energy Transition Consultant with Hatch. Hello.
Thanks for having me.
And welcome back to the show. And Gary Thompson, CNA's Dean of Sustainable Development. Hello.
Okay. Thank you for having me as well.
All right, folks, let's get started. We'll start with, before we go into, a little bit of your backstories on who you are, what's something you think folks don't know about when it comes to the just transition, green transition, this thing that's happening now? Because I know you're, right into it, but when whether it's out with your neighbors or whoever else, what do you run into that you think folks don't know? And Gary, we'll start with you.
The thing that I think people aren't knowing is that there's a lot going on with the transition already. It's happening. It's not a case of we're ignoring it. We're ignoring the transition from oil to gas. We're ignoring global warming, climate change. There's a lot happening. There's a lot happening in the college. There's a lot happening with industry partners. And, I've got young kids in their 20s, and I see that with that generation. It's like, what have you guys left us? You reaped all the benefits, and you're leaving us with a planet that's burning. And, I look at it and I say, yeah, it's not great. But there's a lot happening going on. We had the Belgium group coming over a few weeks ago, and they were talking about what they're doing in Belgium to get ready to transport hydrogen across. What we're doing within the college, we'll talk about that more, and what everyone else is doing. So, I'm probably an eternal optimist, and I'm a half glass full sort of guy.
Yeah.
And there is light at the end of the tunnel that we're going to move away from this carbon economy and into a better world. And everything's changing. I've been in the education system now for 30 odd years, and I've really seen how things have changed, how we teach, how we do things, how we prepare grants, different aspects we're looking at with everything we do.
If you were a pessimist, being CNA's Dean of Sustainable Development, I don't think it would be a good look on you, right? It's there's no hope, guys, folks, there's no hope as you're coming in. That would not be a good look. Thoughts?
For me, I think something that I always like to emulate and say is it's an opportunity, and we have to take this opportunity. And, working with Hatch, and I'm doing my master's in Europe and things like that, you see these other jurisdictions. The opportunity is in Newfoundland, and we can take this transition, and look at it, like you said, glass half full, at all the opportunities that it's going to bring. There's nowhere comparable in the world that we can take, our natural resources, our wind, our fresh water, our land, and the skill set that we already have to build on to actually just take this for what it is, a massive challenge, but also an amazing opportunity for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Thanks, Karen. Sean, what about you?
Two things come to mind.
Right.
Building on what Karen said, we've got a massive opportunity here globally, and I'm not sure it's really set in. In fact, it hasn't set in with our team and me sometimes. How well positioned we are with proximity to market and the uniqueness of the locations we have to build these projects, from the resource through to the fresh water, through to various other advantages, including an extremely supportive stakeholder base. and that includes, in our case, the Alibu First Nation. Oh, it's allowed us to move very quickly, and we're positioned on the global stage in a way that I don't think the general public appreciates. These projects that are being contemplated here have the opportunity to see us make a huge impact on the fight against climate change in the very near future before many other jurisdictions. And when you consider the external forces around investment, I mean, people want to invest in Canada. It's politically stable. There's a lot less risk when you're talking about a project with a 30-year life cycle. And that's huge for us as well. So just, again, highlighting the opportunity that we have and people understanding it's here now, but there is a limited time for us to seize that opportunity. And the second one is the targets that are set globally. I don't think these targets that have been set, and let's focus on the EU, are really understood from the perspective of how much clean energy needs to flow in for us to be able to achieve these targets. And every year that goes by, every week that goes by, in some cases, it's getting more difficult to achieve those targets. There's going to be a huge need for green hydrogen, green ammonia, and then there's an opportunity for us to value add to that energy here before it leaves the province, which is enhances that opportunity in ways that people can't comprehend right now.
How fast is stuff moving, by the way, right? Because you've got, with your South Korean investors, right? So you've got an Asia perspective. You're over in Europe a fair bit. What's the speed that that stuff is moving at for when you have these targets?
A lot of it's moving extremely quickly. I mean, there's a massive amount of discussion around this. There's a massive amount of technology development. So those are moving very, very quickly. I think the thing is not moving so quickly is discussion around getting that supply and getting the infrastructure in place to support the supply that needs to come in to meet the targets. But that's starting to move along as well. So we see that starting to move past the crawl that has been for the last year as people try and absorb how we're going to deal with this, how we're going to pay for the extra cost of the green fuel. But now that we've got the traction there, that discussion and that build-out is starting to move quickly also.
Kieran?
I think, when people talk about these concepts of just transition or, the energy transition, green transition, whatever term you want to use, they talk about it in the sense that it's something in the future, something that we have to aspire to, or something that we really need to prepare for. Well, I would say that we're actually in the middle of all of those changes right now. And we're seeing it in heavy industry. We're seeing it in our mining industry, where a number of our key mines have made massive investments to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions through various technologies. We're seeing the same in the offshore oil and gas industry, where lots of plans are being explored to understand how how greenhouse gas emissions can be reduced in that sector. Our electricity system is now suddenly, this myth that we're going to have all this extra electricity from Muskrat Falls.
I think the term was energy warehouse that they used to float around about 10 years ago, right?
So guess what? We're running out of electricity because of the speed at which we're electrifying things, decarbonizing things. So now suddenly we have to look very quickly at what are we going to build next to supply the electricity needs of the province. Ask anyone around this table that 3 years ago, and you kind of would have been laughed at. And then, we have a refinery in Come By Chance, which was, refined gas. And now it has been retrofitted to produce renewable diesel, which is a product which I think is 40% more greenhouse gas efficient than what was produced before. And we are on the frontier of a brand new industry on a global scale. So the types of projects that Sean is working on and others are really world leading. And I don't think that we've grasped that yet as an opportunity for the province. And in and amidst all of this sort of stuff, it's not as if workers are suddenly moving from, here was my job yesterday, tomorrow this is now a green job. Mm-hmm. It's a process, it's an evolution, and some folks around this table, I think, have had experiences where they were working in an industry and then looking at how do we make that more efficient environmentally. Suddenly there's opportunities in other industries. So these are changes that happen over time. It's not a switch that's flipped. So I think that's what I would say, is that we are right smack dab in the middle of the change, and we're lucky in Newfoundland and Labrador to be in a position where we can benefit to a great degree from it all. So let's seize that opportunity.
And remind folks about Econex and what your role is when it comes to the transition.
Yeah, so we're a not-for-profit association working towards clean growth in Newfoundland and Labrador. So exploring, that line between economic growth and environmental sustainability. So that can mean investments into emissions reductions, or it can mean investments into clean energy or waste management. Kind of across the economy. How do we get better and make money while we're at it?
Sean, you just cleared the environmental hurdle, right? There's still process steps to go in the process. What can you tell us just about the outlook for where things are going with the project on the west coast of the island, and what it means for jobs?
The hurdle, as you would say, is a massive milestone for the project. Yeah. I mean, there was a significant amount of work to produce the environmental impact statement, or the EIS, and the amendment that followed on when the province required more information for us. So, being released is a milestone that we need to take a moment to appreciate, not just for our project, but for what it means to the province and the commitment to standing up this green energy industry, and for the province and the country to take its place on that global stage, as we talked about earlier. But it's in a way, it's the start of another phase of the work. The environmental work and the monitoring will go on for the life of the project, and it's extremely important. It's the most important aspect of the project, and we've got a huge responsibility to the various stakeholders, the Halibu and the First Nations folks in the area, and everybody else in the community. So we're looking forward to digging in and moving on with that next phase. With that next phase comes the jobs that you're talking about. It really starts to accelerate. So we've been cautious. In our view, we think we've been prudent by using external contractors to help with a lot of the front end work, because we really weren't sure, and we still have to make FID, but we're a lot more confident in the fact that we're going to have a project that moves forward now, so we can start to hire people and give them a vision for the long-term employment. And gradually those contractors and consultants will turn into full-time positions with the company. So currently we've got just under 30 in St. John's, direct employees I'm speaking of now, and about just under 10 in Stephenville. And we've got a plan as we move forward with our FEED plans, front-end engineering and design, to add another approximately 70 positions. And we hope that those positions, some of them are very experienced engineering type of positions, but we hope we'll be able to draw from the experience that's in that's resident in the province, largely due to the previous mega projects that have been built here.
Right on. Right, 70. And then for down the road then, if things go the way you're hoping for and the plans are, what's the bigger picture there?
So for phase one of the project, that's the 1 gigawatt wind farm, and the second wind farm, which is about 1 gigawatt as well, in Codroy, and the plant site itself. We're looking at 400 permanent jobs, and that'll be for the life of the project. 2,200 jobs during construction. And our economic analysis that was prepared by Jupia Consultants talks about just under 5,000 indirect jobs created as a result of the phase one of the project.
Right on. Karen, Hatch, give us a bit more of an explainer around what Hatch is and the work you do.
So Hatch is a global consulting firm.
Pretty big.
Yeah, we have 10,000 people. We are headquartered in Canada. So locally, our St. John's office, we have just under 200 people. I work within our energy division. So I have, and I'll speak to where I've been working on, and it's been mostly this hydrogen, and in Newfoundland and Labrador, I'm working on the different opportunities. And, we'll talk about transition and being in the middle. I mean, it's taking every discipline in our office. We have civil engineers getting roads to these wind turbines, things like that, structural foundations for wind turbines, all the electrical work that comes with it, and then project controls, project management, things like that. So it's really tapped into kind of every corner of our office, and everybody has been, a part of these mega projects, and see the opportunity that we have as Hatch, and to be able to use our local resources. and work on projects locally because, as a global company, we get to work on projects all over the world, but it's extra special when you get to work on a project that, is in the province that you live and work and whatnot.
Right on. So there's lots of stuff. And remind folks, you mentioned you're doing a master's. Tell folks about, I guess, some of what you're seeing through this very specific master's that you're doing when it comes to the transition and what you're kind of learning about looking at these jobs on a global scale and what some of the demand is.
Yeah, so the master's that I'm currently doing is in the energy transition, and the majority of my classmates are all European, and, they're looking at, a lot of them are actually energy importers and looking at, well, where are we going to get this product and, where are we going to, fuel the future, et cetera. And even just talking to them outside of class, like when they're talking about, a few years ago with the natural gas crisis and prices and, talking about, okay, well, this is the price of electricity and heat in my home and it's astronomical. And we're saying, oh, well, in Newfoundland and Canada, we have hydro and, we have this potential for hydrogen. They're like, well, how soon can you get it here? So, that goes back to the opportunities there. They're already seeing it. They're, the amount of energy and to meet their targets and whatnot. So that focus and looking at, who the potential customer of all these products is has been a very multidisciplinary view for me, at least, to say, okay, well, we can do it here, but it's actually directly benefiting so many people in Europe or wherever we're going to be able to export the products to.
It's kind of wild to have that perspective, right? Because you're working stuff here, and yes, it's this global company, but then to be talking to fellow students of yours who've got a European perspective, seeing like, well, wait a minute, looking here, looking at hydrogen, hydro, whatever else that's happening, it gives you so many more layers of understanding than, I guess, others, right?
Yeah, and I mean, Europe is such a complicated energy system that, when we're in Newfoundland and we think about, okay, well, we have hydro, and then we have Newfoundland Power distributes it, we sell a little bit of power, et cetera, and then you get there, and the interconnections of their system, to me, that was just mind-blowing. So just being able to even grasp your head around that and how we could support that and be, potentially, Newfoundland hydrogen would be, part of their natural gas systems or their hydrogen systems, and that they have a real need for it now, and just what that opportunity could be in the future.
As we talk about being in the middle of a transition, right, like Karen was saying, and projects that are working their way through or existing projects, it makes me think of training for new workers, right? And if only we had a school of sustainable development.
Exactly.
But we do.
See how progressive we are?
Right? Do you like that? Do you like the segue?
Yes,
to get
exactly. I mean, yeah, it's a great initiative by the college, and I'm not just saying that because it gives me a job.
Speaking of jobs,
there's one right here. So and the college it's transitioning. I mean, you always talk about it. It's darkest before the dawn sort of thing, and during COVID, that was a real wake up for us, and the college did fantastic. Blowing our own horn here. I think it was under 2 weeks we went from total shutdown, everyone working from home, to having classes and students back online learning. And it was that sort of transition in COVID, which I think, and globally as well, everyone realised, we can change things, we can do things better. We learned a lot of lessons from COVID, it's around the workforce, how we can work remotely, the technology and things like that. So as COVID came out, the college has now got, we're looking at this transition in the jobs, and Karen and Sean both mentioned it, that, we need jobs, and it's not just on the energy front. I mean, Sean mentioned the world for this decarbonisation needs energy, but we need metals as well. I mean, there's a huge amount of metals we need to meet these 2030, 2050 requirements. We have to mine more copper in the next 5 years than what we've mined in the history of the planet up to now.
That's a bit of a challenge.
That's a bit of a challenge. And, so it's not only the energy projects that need these workers, the mining projects that are coming on board, the Calibers, the Fireflies and that are looking at redesigning their mines, making green mines in the mine of the future need workers as well. So at the college, we're looking at is how do we play into this role? And so we've got a new strategic plan over 3 years, and going into the just transition, we can't leave people behind. I mean, we don't have the people in the province just to select who's going forward. Everybody has to be part of the transition and trained and be part of it. So our 3 pillars on that side, one is equity, diversity, inclusion. How can we do better on that front? The other one is around our teaching and innovation. What improvements can be the way we teach and do things? Going are the days where an instructor would sit in front of the class, he had a room full of students, he'd talk for an hour and they'd go away. We're really looking at how we integrate that work integrated learning into our teaching, how our students are out with the workforce and working with them, coming back to the college, and that blurring of the line between what is traditional college and teaching and when they go into the workforce. I mean, we have students on work terms, we have micro-credentialing now, and that whole new way of teaching. And then the final pillar, which is a really important one, is the sustainable development. And that's where I fit in with the school. It's not just about sustainable development and teaching it, like the energy programs, the green retrofitting programs, but it's also how we make the college more sustainable in the operations, meeting those United Nations sustainability goals as well. It's a unique school that I've seen across Canada. Most sustainability departments in other universities and college are standalone. We're part of the teaching and a school doing the teaching and part of the operations as well.
So then what's a message for if you've got parents or young folks listening now who are thinking about wanting to be involved with getting into the business of this transition? What should they be thinking about for CNA and perhaps enrolling?
Definitely. The benefits of CNA, we've got the programs that go for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year programs, diplomas. You come into it now with the work terms and that it's very cost effective. Yeah. And I look at that. I don't like to, it's a way to get your schooling, your education and get out there to do the workforce. We recently were hiring somebody and we're talking about the difference between college and other institutions and academia. And he made a comment, useful now. And that's what we see about the students that we're educating and training, that they're useful now. We have an applied research division that's working on the innovation and working with companies, how we can bring in new technologies, how we can get students involved in that innovation as well. So that's where we're looking at. We're in different aspects. We've got the 3 new programs. The first program of its type in Canada, the hydrogen technician program that's operating out of Corner Brook. We're going to be graduating our first students in a year's time. We should be graduating wind turbine technicians in June. And then in September, we're going to start up a solar technician program in Happy Valley Goose Bay.
Right.
So, there's lots of opportunities out there. We're talking with our industry partners, with World Energy, we're working with Karen and that on what micro-credentialing we can do, what short-term training we can do to bring people up to speed already in the workforce. We're constantly out there, and I see that as my role, is talking with industry. What do industry need that we can bring into our training and get our students trained in what they need for making this transition, which is happening now.
All right, so let's ask the others in the room. For everything that's being laid out there for CNA, is that from, if you have CNA, Memorial University, from engineering, I know they've got some AI stuff on the go as well, but when you look at the folks being educated right now in this province, is it enough for what you like, either who Econex is dealing with or World Energy GH2 or for Hatch? Are these the folks getting trained properly for what you need?
I think yes.
Yeah.
There's more to be done. Yeah. But if you're an engineer, as Karen can easily demonstrate here, it's not a giant leap to make the shift into working on all of the things related to wind and hydrogen. And the same can be said for an electrician. You have all the core skills that you need to work. I guess one of the interesting things is that in Newfoundland and Labrador, perhaps most people have never seen a wind turbine because there's only a couple. Yeah. So that's the missing element. Like, how specifically does your expertise apply in this scenario? And that's more of an upskilling, micro-learning add-on to the things that you are already good at, and less of this is something entirely brand new. There are aspects which are brand new, hydrogen technician, wind turbine technician, but those I would deem to be specialties which pale in comparison to all of the jobs which we already have a lot of knowledge in that just need to be applied a little bit differently. And I just want to say we are so lucky to have the College of the North Atlantic being as progressive and proactive as it is, truly the fact that they already have programming relevant to some of these new industries is phenomenal. They are the first in Canada to do some of this. They're the first in the world in some cases. And we're very lucky. And I think that any students going to the college from here on out can say that, that this is an institution that's going to be recognized internationally for the work that it's doing. And we're just starting on that journey. But it's important to realize that all of the groundwork that we're laying right now in real time will pay off in dividends, not just in terms of the projects and the developments, but in the kind of capital that we're going to build as in our brains. And so Hatch, if they have 200 employees working on major hydrogen projects here in St. John's and throughout the province, guess what? Since we're on the frontier of so much of these projects, that is expertise that is going to be sought after on a global basis. So suddenly, those 200 employees here will be exporting all of that knowledge and know-how on a global basis. And those are things we have to be mindful of, too. There are so many benefits to taking advantage of this opportunity that will pay off down the road.
Karen?
Yeah, I'd love to echo that because, like I said, I've been involved in, several of these hydrogen projects already from various stages of engineering and whatnot. And already, counterparts within the company are like, okay, well, we have a project down in Ohio. Can we pull you in on this? Oh, we have a project in South Africa. Like, you've got this knowledge. But I think also to your point about, okay, I think everybody gets this daunting image of we need a completely new skill set to make the energy transition. That's not true. We've had a lot of people in our office. A big project for us was Voisey's Bay Mine. A lot of these people are now working on wind projects. There wasn't, a significant, they didn't go back for 6 years to become a wind hydrogen project engineer. Mm-hmm. A lot of the process work that's happening, a lot of those skills are all oil and gas skills. It's process work. It's a different medium. It's hydrogen. It's not natural gas or oil. But the engineers that are designing these systems and are working on that are ones that have worked in the offshore and the oil sands and things like that. We have great SMEs in hydrogen and ammonia that we call on that maybe have just that more particular skill set. But I think in Newfoundland, we don't need to be scared. We have the skills. We didn't have the skill to climb a wind turbine and fix it. But we're working on that. We got that now. And the same thing, we've been training power engineers for however many years at the college, but now we're just adding on those. Okay, well, now you're a hydrogen power engineer. Like, these are the few things that you do need to know to enter this industry. So I don't think it's as scary as what we need to make it be. The scary thing is the potential to have a lot of major projects all at the same time and competing for resources. I think that, to me, would be the biggest opportunity, is we just need a lot of people at one point.
Yeah, 'cause in interviews I've done before, I hear from folks talking about, like we said, and which was course correct at the beginning of the show, just about where we are with the transition. And it's just like, oh, well, what will happen down the road? Well, if we say what you would call oil and gas workers, which could be called energy workers, is there something for them? You're like, but it's here now. It's happening. Yeah. This is not a future thing. And you can see people are, whether there's a little bit of like upskilling or whatever else, the base gets folks from A to B to C for these different jobs for what's required for projects. Mm-hmm. Fascinating. Sean, what do you think?
We're off to a great start.
Yeah.
CNA has clearly led the charge on that. We first talked to Liz Kidd back in spring of 2022 about our plans, our project. And immediately Liz mobilized her team, including the board, came to Hamburg to a wind conference with us in September of 22. And then the plans started to unfold from there. And it's remarkable what the organization has done and how they've progressed these plans that we see in action today, with students actually looking for work-term positions and getting work-term positions from these programs. So great start. I think we need to do more. We're trying to do our part. We've got the Newegg Academy, which is a joint venture between the Halibu and the DOB Academy out of the Netherlands that specialize in renewables training, community education, below where CNA fits. So more of the certificate type of programs that they provide, and hopefully generate more interest, provide a base baseline of knowledge for the overall community on what we have here, and then the people that are interested can go on and get trained with CNA or perhaps undertake a program like Karen's involved in. And I was really interested to hear about the program that Karen's in, a very specialized program, it sounds like, in Europe.
Yeah.
Could we have a program like that here someday to train even more people and to make sure we're ready for those massive opportunities that I think are going to come? So again, we need to do more and build on the start that we've got.
Because and Karen, I'm going to go to you on this in a second because I don't know anything about it, but it does make sense to me when you look at everything going on here. So if we have what the CNA is doing, and then you look at Memorial University and certain programs, to have something like, what do you think about that? To have that type of a master's level program here for folks?
I think that would be amazing. I cannot talk exactly to what Memorial has done.
No,
I'm
of course,
sure that
I know.
they're working on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, when I went through, it was very oil and gas focused. The oil and gas companies here would fund different things, and that was the industry, so it made sense that the masters were on oil and gas, and it still makes sense because we still have a great oil and gas industry here. So as we progress and as we move into a new industry that has all this opportunity, academia should not necessarily follow, it should start so that we have those people ready and willing to go. And it's actually interesting. So the program that I'm doing is it's in Groningen, and they've had, I would say, a very similar landscape to what Newfoundland, where they were a province that relied on natural gas. They had natural gas fields, and now they're in this kind of era of, okay, so we have our natural gas, but where do we diversify to? Kind of what's next? And that's where this program, they're like looking at hydrogen, looking at different opportunities. So I see that parallel to Newfoundland, where we've had a great oil and gas sector that's done very well for our province, but what's the next opportunity, and how do we continue to diversify Newfoundland to be an energy powerhouse that it can very much be?
You're listening to The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. It is our third show on the just transition, the green shift, the energy transformation, whatever you want to call it. We're talking about how the economy is changing all around these energy-related jobs. If you've got thoughts on the show, you can text us 709-327-8206. Send us an email, thesignal@cbc.ca. Here in studio, we've got Kieran Hanley, CEO with EcoNext, Sean Leap, Managing Director and CEO of World Energy GH2, Karen Perry, Energy Transition Consultant with Hatch, Gary Thompson, CNA's Dean of Sustainable Development. Sean, I'm curious, before the show started, we were talking about South Korean investment, right? And just like this international look at things. What does it say to you, and what do you think folks should understand about when you have someone like an LG subsidiary investing in your project?
SK approached us.
SK, not LG. Yeah.
SK had approached us. First of all, they started working on the project in August of 2022 in an engineering capacity. And as we were looking for a partner to come in that would add some expertise and make an investment in the project, SK learned of that process and said, look, we'd like to invest. We know a lot about the project already. We can move very quickly. We know you're talking to other parties, but this is the number one project that we've seen globally. Now, it's important to understand that SK, not only being the second largest conglomerate in Korea, having a huge amount of expertise across various industries, has investments in electrolyzer technology, Plug Power and Bloom Energy in the U.S. And these are emerging electrolyzer technologies. Electrolyzers produce hydrogen. And so they're educated in the space, and they've been in it they were one of the leaders. Those investments took place a number of years ago. So this was their first investment, World Energy GH2, in a project anywhere in the world, a production project. And this was an important strategic milestone for them, was to get involved in the upstream aspect of the industry, where they were already involved in the electrolyzer, the technology space. So they were able to move quickly as they said they would, and that's very quick for a company from the Far East, a Korean company. Typically, their investment decisions take quite a bit longer, but they were that convinced in what we have here in the province, and with the unique attributes of our site and the support from all levels of government and the community, they were convinced that they needed to take a position on this project. So, if you think about, they've got the resources financially, and human resources as well to go anywhere in the world, and they work in almost every country in the world, and they focused in on Newfoundland and Labrador, and fortunately made an investment in our project. So I think that just speaks volumes about how we're positioned.
Yeah, like you said, it's the number 2 conglomerate for SK. So just below the name, if folks don't recognize that one, the number 1 they will recognize, which is Samsung. So this is a giant conglomerate. And also, like South Korea, they're really doubling down on hydrogen, right? I mean, you know, a couple of quick Google searches, you see it's like, oh, they want it for powering buses and cars and everything else. So I find it really fascinating that you have a company like that, especially from a country where they're doing so much work in the hydrogen file and trying to green their economy, to be interested over here. Any other thoughts on like international looks? We've been talking about Europe, we're talking about Asia. What else are you folks looking at internationally for opportunity here that's kind of, you know, piquing your curiosity when it comes to what we're trying to do for the shift and the transition in this province?
Well, I'd be careful about spreading the net too wide. We are a small province, but I think it is important to understand the outsized role that we could play internationally here as such a small province. So, you know, we had the German Chancellor fly into Stephenville. EU leadership was down at Kitty Vitty in November, I think. So we should not lose sight of the fact that there is great international interest in the province that perhaps has never been seen before. Well, it certainly hasn't been seen before. So I think we should be cognizant of the fact that there are parts of the world that are desperately seeking clean energy, and they do see Canada as being, a safe provider of that. They want to make sure that they're diversifying their inputs so that they're not relying on one country. Mistakes perhaps learned from with their reliance on Russian gas, for example. So, in the projects, one thing to keep in mind is that one project is not going to solve the problem in Europe. It's a drop in the bucket. So it's indicative of the opportunity for Canada at large and the role that Newfoundland and Labrador can play to lead Canada's effort to support Europe. I'm most educated on what the demand is in Europe. Can't speak to other parts of the world, but I do know that many of the leading economies of the world have aggressive decarbonization plans, and electrification can only get you so far. When it comes to moving ships, large equipment, large transportation, heavy industry, those things, you need something else other than a battery. And a clean fuel is going to be the answer. I think that has, the world has waffled on that for some years, but I think now we see that clean fuels is going to be the answer in many jurisdictions, and that includes hydrogen or green ammonia, all the derivatives of hydrogen, or renewable diesel, as we're seeing in Come By Chance with Brea Renewables, for example. So not losing sight of that great opportunity,
What do you find folks get wrong about the transition or about what you do, whether it's misunderstanding, misinfo? Sometimes there's disinfo, obviously, but what do you find people kind of, like I said, get wrong when it comes to what's happening?
Well, I was just going to jump in there. Adam,
go ahead.
On the international front, with the college on the green transition, Guyana and South America merging oil and gas finds, which is going to help build that country up. But we've got programs down there and partnering with institutes down there on green energy, on training up solar technicians for Guyana and that. Right. So we're involved, CNA Global is involved in a lot of different countries, taking our expertise over there to help them build up what we've done. Learning off our mistakes in some cases, but in a lot of times we're down there helping them, like with Guyana with the solar technician program. We developed down there, and we took a lot of those learnings that we were down there and brought them back up here for our solar technician program as well. So
then keep painting that picture for me. What happens then in 5 years, 10 years if you keep doing these types of things? What's the benefit for everyone in this?
Well, for Guyana, it's to build up their base, their educational base, to build it up to. Everyone looks at Canada as a beacon of education. Like we do have an excellent education system of our colleges, our universities. So we can go in there and train the trainer. We don't go, we used to have the Qatari campus, where it was the largest educational offshore project ever in Canada. in Qatar, but that was our instructors over there running it. We've moved more away from that model into doing the trainer, helping those countries build up their training. So we can build up their training, their educational things. Our instructors are going over there and getting experience.
Yeah.
We're also, building a workforce overseas that maybe we can develop as well.
Yeah,
we can utilise. I mean, look at the numbers we need. I don't think even if everybody in Newfoundland and Labrador now moved into the energy transitional construction, we'd have enough people to build, the 5 mega projects that are go ahead, the mines that need to go ahead, and carry on with the current buildings. So we have to bring in international people as well. So.
Yeah, and which makes it interesting when you look at the demographics of the province. I mean, yes, there is slow population growth happening because of immigration and newcomers arriving, but then the continued need for a skilled workforce and to continue to grow or keep the population where it's at and to try to grow it. Those types of things, it seems to start to make sense, eh?
Exactly. Well, as an immigrant myself.
I didn't catch that with your accent. Any thoughts on this last comment? Well, I'm wondering then, what do folks get wrong that you kind of run into? Like,
I think the thing, and Karen hit on it too, the transition. I think we're still suffering trauma from the cod moratorium. That when the fishery shut down, it was a whole industry closed. There was massive unemployment, massive layoff. You had a whole generation, more than one generation, didn't have anywhere to go. Fishing was their life, their parents' life, generations' life, and now it was stopped. This is very different, as Karen pointed out. It's technology driven. Like if you're working on an oil rig, the transition to move to an ammonia plant is not that great. There'll be some upskilling and things like that, which we're working on.
Yeah.
But the way of life is not going to be as drastic that what we saw in 91.
Yeah, it's not that again. It's
something different, and I think there is still that trauma about that, and there's also the trauma about Muskrat Falls as well, right? And we're learning from our mistakes.
Karen, thoughts?
I think another thing people get wrong is, what does an energy transition worker look like? Like, let's take, for instance, one of my friends, he installs heat pumps. By all means, he's an energy transition worker. 15 years ago, he would have been putting in an oil tank in your home.
Yeah.
My husband, he works for a car dealership. We're now selling electric vehicles. He's an energy transition worker.
Right.
So, it's not just the people who will be climbing the wind turbines. It's, collectively, a lot of us on, this effort. And then we get back to the mining. I mean, that opportunity in Newfoundland is something that I don't think that we talk about enough. And if you can, be green lithium or green, whatever the product you're making, how much you can get for that product and whatnot. And in Newfoundland, because of the way our grid is, I mean, it's unparalleled how clean our grid is. And that if we can just keep to advancing that and to supporting, in Labrador, maybe IOC, we put up a bunch of wind turbines, or Voisey's Bay, or even the smaller mines on island. And if they can become, those world-leading low-carbon products, that also is supporting the energy transition. So there's so many different roles that it may not seem like, oh, you're an energy transition worker, or you're this. But you are.
Yeah.
And you're already a part of it. You might not even know that you're a part of it yet.
And IOC's been doing a lot of work, right? Up in
yeah,
Labrador.
They've been doing, all of the mines really here have been doing a lot of great work. And just by sheer luck of where their resource was and being able to connect to a grid that is as clean as ours is an amazing asset. And then for other, organizations, sectors, opportunities, to be able to tap into a clean grid as you continue to electrify all of your different pieces of equipment to reduce your emissions, that's huge.
Yeah. Sean?
I think it's important for us to keep in mind that we're all learning together. I mean, as you point out, Karen, it's here. The energy transition is here. It's not something we're talking about in the future. And because it's so new, we're all, learning. We certainly haven't done everything right. We learn from our mistakes, and I think as an industry and the economy generally across the globe is learning as we move this along. So we think it's important to have an open dialogue with everybody. Yeah. And make sure the door is open. Make sure we're answering the questions. Very early on, there was concerns in the area of our project about turbines and what are the effects. So we took a group up to Ontario, to one of our partners' wind farms, and let them talk to the people in these communities and interact with the turbines. And they brought decibel meters and whatnot, and get educated on exactly what is involved and what the impacts are, just as one example. So we'll continue to learn together and make sure that we're taking best practices from other areas and incorporating those into our project, and we need to do that as an industry here in general.
What's it like when you're talking to folks like that, when you do those types of things, right? When you bring them up and it's like, hey, here's the decibel meter, and like we're going to show you, try to get like that open conversation. What's that like to be involved with it?
In most cases, it's extremely rewarding. Yeah. I mean, again, we're learning together, and to be able to have that open dialogue and have the experts available to address any of the tough questions around the technology and again, impacts and whatnot, that's the primary focus. But it's also very rewarding to start to see how the market's developing for green ammonia and green hydrogen, and the opportunities for us to add value to the energy here before it leaves the province. That's coming. Those discussions are ongoing as well. And that is super exciting. So lots of learning to do, and recognize that as we make the mistakes, let's learn from them, not dwell on them, move on.
Yeah. Kieran, what about yourself?
I'd like to riff off something Karen mentioned, actually, about the importance of our clean electricity grid. So by virtue of all the hydroelectricity we have, those using electricity for heavy industry or manufacturing processes can claim, rightfully so, that they're creating something with a very low greenhouse gas emissions profile, and that can be for hydrogen. It can be for nickel. So Vale, for example, sends its nickel to Tesla, I believe it is. IOC looking at the manufacture of what is commonly now called green steel, which is using clean energy to go through the iron ore process. It's such an important investment attraction item. I think we do need to be aware as Newfoundland and Labradorians that we're running out of clean electricity. Yeah. And we're running out of it quickly. And so we are going to need other sources of electricity to ensure that we can continue to support operations like those I mentioned, but also explore new opportunities. And maybe there's opportunities, for example, if World Energy is building a project, can our electricity grid benefit from that? Those are really important questions to have, and quickly, because it can take a long time to move projects through regulatory processes, but we are running out of electricity. In terms of what people get wrong, and this is kind of related, Gary brought up Muskrat Falls, and we all dwell on that as a major. There were some issues, perhaps.
Yeah.
But I think that was an investment with public dollars. Yeah. And sometimes people make the connection that some of these wind hydrogen projects, for example, are similar in that we're taking these big risks, but we as taxpayers are not taking the risk here. These are projects which are driven by the private sector and private sector investment on a global scale, who are going to take the risk and who believe in what they're seeing. So I think that's something that we kind of collectively need to correct, is that this isn't government putting their neck on the line. This is industry doing so, which is very different.
Where we are right now, what would you all like to see to kind of keep things moving, either as the plans are, or for what you think is necessary to continue with the shift and for prosperity for Newfoundland and Labrador, for workers, for jobs, which is this is a transition show, but the focus is jobs. So what else would you like to see added, Sean?
Kieran hit on something that's extremely important, and we haven't talked a lot about it here today, but we want to make sure we're focused on the regulatory environment. Provincial government has done an amazing job with moving very, very quickly in this new industry where there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, but we have identified various legislative changes and regulatory issues that need to be addressed. But a big part of that is the timing. for these approvals and making these changes that are required to keep us moving as fast as we need to move to take advantage of the opportunities so it doesn't pass us by. So we're keenly focused on that. We as an industry need to talk more about that and need to make sure the regulators are educated in what we're facing if the processes don't adapt to the timelines that are required. And we're not talking about cutting corners anywhere. It's just getting the work done, but getting it done faster because we don't have the luxury of time. I think.
When is too late then? For us, for what you're talking about, when do things slip by for the timeline for where things are at? Looking at whether 2025 for perhaps getting things going. Like is it 2026? Is that too not that you can give an exact date, but what is too late?
Yeah, I don't think anybody could give you an accurate, precise answer to that because things are evolving. We were quite concerned previously, and we still are, about the U.S. IRA subsidies. Now the legislation has taken longer in the U.S. to be processed, but once that hits and those subsidies are available to those projects, the manufacturing slots for the wind turbines and the electrolyzers will get taken up very, very quickly, and then you move to the back of the line. So when does that happen? We think those rules are going to be published here relatively soon. We're talking months away, a few months, and it could be as early as this month. So we just need to recognize that it's evolving, and it's evolving quickly, and the more we can do to accelerate the timelines around the regulatory processes, the better.
Okay. Any other thoughts from anyone else?
I mean, from the college perspective, the industry's moving fast. Yeah. Innovation's moving quickly, and what we've got to carry on doing and keep doing is connecting with industry and Karen's group and Hatch and finding out what they need on the training needs, so we can adapt quickly enough to make sure that we're producing students that they need.
Because the last thing you want to do is have students coming out and it's like, oh well, actually things have moved beyond and they need even more training than what's being given. Yeah,
and it's fast. The way things are moving is fast, right?
Karen?
I think while things are moving fast, we even got to get faster. I mean, when you think of there's regulations in Europe to get hydrogen before a certain date. When you're talking about 2030 targets, in the world of engineering and getting a project and infrastructure off the ground, that's tomorrow. Like, we should have started last year. So there's so much that we still have to do, and the amount of decisions that are going to have to be made by government, Newfoundland Hydro, investors, etc., in the next few years is astronomical. And like you said, learn from our mistakes, but we can't dwell on them. It's, we love to dwell on our mistakes in Newfoundland, and maybe rightfully so, but let's learn from them and let's keep going, because we cannot slow down. We can't take a break. You take that moment to say, okay, maybe shouldn't have done it that way, but we're not going to do it like that again. Let's keep going to the next decision. Let's keep going, and let's keep going, because if not, this opportunity will pass us by, and unfortunately, all these aggressive targets won't be made.
So then are folks hearing and understanding this then? Because we're still talking about people need to be on board for making things happen faster.
I would say yes and no. I mean, let's look back 2 years ago. It would have been illegal in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador to do an environmental assessment on a wind project.
Yeah.
So
that's in the yes category.
Yeah. So I will give all the credit in the world to our provincial government for moving quite quickly to ensure that some of the processes are in place to allow things to move. But there are, as projects move from concept to reality, there's a large number of different challenges that we don't even know exist. We're going to start to trip up over them. So I think my message would be, continue. We keep your kind of foot on the gas pedal, or your hydrogen pedal, whatever you want to call it. I guess gas wouldn't be.
Sean, we're pretty much out of time, but last thoughts for today, if you want to build on that, if there's any final thought.
I agree with Karen's comments, and I would just stress, any of the regulatory processes that we can accelerate and move along quickly and get out in front of the changes that need to be made. That's the most important thing we're facing in this province right now.
All right. Thank you, folks. Sean Leet, Kieran Hanley, Karen Perry, Gary Thompson. That is it for today's show. If you're watching online, thank you very much. We'll be on YouTube later today. And if you're listening on your radio, thanks as always. Thoughts on the show, The Signal at cbc.ca. Looking to tomorrow's show, we're talking about the carbon tax. I have a financial advisor, an economist, and a poli-sci prof who will join us to break it all down for you. Plus, we've got some comments to revisit from MHAs who were on the show back in February. Don't miss that tomorrow. Thanks for listening.
This is CBC News for Newfoundland and Labrador. I'm William Ping. O.J. Simpson has died. His family says Simpson died yesterday after a long battle with cancer. He was 76 years old. Cameron McIntosh has more.
First down now for Southern Cal on their 20.
From the beginning, he was a star.
80 yards for O.J. Simpson.
A Hall of Famer.
He could be back for that playoff game.
O.J. Simpson was a beloved American icon.
Police believe that O.J. Simpson is in that car.
Who lost it all live in real time.
This is courtesy of KCALR.
That infamous 1994 police chase, still one of the most watched events in television history. Simpson fleeing police amid suspicions. He killed his ex-wife Nicole Brown and her friend Ron Goldman.
Mr. Cochran, on behalf of Mr. Simpson, are you prepared to proceed?
The following so-called trial of the century split America down racial lines, arguing over the fit of a glove.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Simpson was acquitted, but his name was far from cleared. He was found liable in civil court for the deaths and ordered to pay the families more than $30 million. He never did, claiming bankruptcy. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Returning to news about this province, Canada has become one of the first countries in the world to move ahead with the production of so-called green hydrogen. But some people are still questioning the economics. With its approval from the province, World Energy GH2 has a plan to generate wind power, use it to get hydrogen out of water, which is then turned into ammonia, exported probably to Germany, where it would then be turned back into hydrogen and used for fuel. Paul Martin is a chemical engineer and founder of the Hydrogen Science Coalition based in Toronto.
Long story short, buy 10 kilowatt hours in Newfoundland, get 2 kilowatt hours back in Germany. I guess that's not bad business if you are selling electricity, but not such good business if you're buying it. It's hard to imagine how people would be rich enough to afford it.
The Hydrogen Science Coalition is made up of independent scientists and researchers from several countries. Well, the first pitch hasn't yet been thrown, but there's already controversy for the Paradise Minor Baseball Association. The executive's facing questions over allegations of missing money, a big deficit, and now a steep hike in registration fees. Terry Roberts reports.
It's already 2 strikes for Paradise Minor Baseball. A police investigation is underway, with allegations that as much as $18,000 was taken from the association. The alleged theft accounts for nearly half of the financial shortfall from last season. And now the executive is getting criticized for a decision to jack up registration rates from 190 to 225 in the junior ranks, an even larger increase in the senior division, and all-star tryout fees that will climb from $50 to $130.
The reality is we didn't charge enough for the program.
Association President Sam Oliver admits the executive did a poor job last year of planning a budget, with costs for labor and supplies and gym rentals coming in much higher than expected. He also believes a former executive member exploited weak financial controls to pocket thousands of dollars.
For sure, I'm heartbroken about it. It's a terrible breach of trust.
Oliver says the fee increases are not related to the alleged theft, but some frustrated parents have launched a petition demanding the increases be canceled. Oliver says fees have to go up or the program will fail. Meanwhile, he says more than 430 players had enrolled as of yesterday. He says that's very encouraging. Terry Roberts, CBC News, Paradise.
And finally, no surprise here, people in this province pay a lot of tax. A new study by the Fraser Institute has found that Atlantic Canadians pay higher personal income tax rates than most of Canada. In the past 15 years, this province went from one of the lowest combined federal and provincial rates in Canada to the highest rate in the country, with an increase of 10%. The Fraser Institute says high-income earners here are paying more tax too. The combined federal and provincial top personal income tax rate has increased by 23%. The Institute says that discourages professionals and others from moving or staying here. And that's the CBC News for Newfoundland and Labrador. I'm William Ping. For all your latest updates on news, weather, and more, you can always check out cbc.ca/NL or download the free CBC News app. Stay tuned now for an encore presentation of Wednesday's The Broadcast.